Hi, my name is Leanne Pegram, and I am chair of the Historic Marker Committee. And we are so pleased to have all of our committee members and our applicants that are available to be with us tonight. This is a highlight every year and is one of my favorite things in the world to do. So I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Heather. I've called the meeting to order, and Heather can do the roll call.
All right. Cheryl, Harry. Oh, so committee members, because we're doing this as a virtual meeting tonight, all of the votes are going to be done by roll call. So I will call, and then you'll need to unmute yourself and acknowledge by voice. And we're going to do the same thing with the roll. So Cheryl, Harry.
Present.
CJ Idle.
Here.
Alana Meltzer-Holderfield.
Present.
Robert Leake. Leanne Pegram.
Here.
Noah Reynolds.
Present.
Janet Schill. Artie Sparrow.
Here.
And Annette Wilson.
Present.
All right, thank you. As Leanne mentioned, she is the chair of the committee, and we have not in prior years had secretary or vice chair of the committee. However, we've been working with Jerry on sort of formalizing things with respect to the committee, which those of you who came to our meeting in October will be familiar with. And so our first order of business tonight is to elect a vice chair and a secretary for the committee. The vice chair can be a member that is from the community or one of our ex officio members or a member from the commission. The secretary position, because one of their roles will be to report to the Historic Resources Commission, the business of the committee, does need to be a member of the Historic Resources Commission. So first, I'd like to open the floor for nominations, either of another person or self-nomination for the vice chair position. Oh, don't all step forward at once.
Well, I would like to nominate Noah Reynolds as
I'll
vice chair.
second that nomination.
I'll accept the nomination.
Okay. Any other nominees for vice chair? Okay. All right. So, first, well, I'm going to call the roll now. Okay. Cheryl Harry.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. CJ Idle.
Aye.
Alana.
Aye.
Leanne.
Aye.
Hold on one second. We're admitting David Reed. Noah Reynolds.
I have to abstain from voting.
Okay. Artie Sparrow.
Aye.
And Annette Wilson.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Noah, congratulations. You are our new vice chair. And then I would like to open the floor for nominations for secretary to the committee.
I guess since I'm the only other commission member present, I'll do secretary.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Cheryl.
Aye.
Alana.
Aye.
Robert's not here. Leanne.
Aye.
Noah.
Aye.
Artie.
Aye.
And Annette.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all. Okay. And I would also just like to acknowledge that my supervisor and Michelle's, David Reed, is also just joining the meeting. He's listening in, and he is retiring at the end of this month. So this will be his last marker committee meeting. So David, thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we usually do. All right. Next order of business is to approve the November 17th, 2021 minutes. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Okay, Cheryl.
Aye.
Is that right?
I'm sorry, what? Yeah.
Yeah, aye, okay.
CJ,
Aye.
Alana,
Aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Noah,
Aye.
Artie,
Aye.
and Annette. I'm going to say, I see you nodding, and since you seconded, we're good. Okay. Then we're going to move to approval of the October 19th, 2022 minutes, which was our most recent committee meeting where we worked on the rules of procedure and so on. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alana. Okay. Cheryl,
Aye.
CJ,
Aye.
Alana,
Aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Noah, Artie,
Aye.
and Annette.
Aye.
All right. We're getting close. Okay. Our next item is approval of the committee rules of procedure. You all were provided with copies of the rules of procedure. For those of you who were not at the October committee meeting, just to highlight, we added the responsibility that the committee actually meets annually to receive and vote on our marker applications. We established 4 members from the commission, 3 members from the community at large, an ex officio member from the African American Heritage Initiative Committee, and an ex officio member from the Human Relations Commission. We established the length of terms as 2 years. We created and defined the offices of vice chair and secretary. We described what will happen if there's a vacancy. And then we provided all of the information about meetings, that they're open public meetings subject to North Carolina public meeting laws, how a special meeting can be called, how meetings are canceled, what a quorum is, and then how the rules of procedure can be amended. Does anyone on the committee have questions about the rules of procedure? No. Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the committee rules of procedure.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cheryl, thank you. Okay. All right. So all those in favor, Cheryl,
Aye.
CJ,
Aye.
Alana,
Aye.
Leanne,
Aye.
Noah,
Aye.
Artie,
Aye.
and Annette.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Last piece of business, and then we'll get to the fun stuff, is to approve the historic marker program policies, which is really the scoring and evaluation piece of our marker program. The chair of actually the Historic Resources Commission, who has served on the Historic Marker Committee, asked us first to look at this because, and I'm sure Faye, you could testify to this, one of the things that she had recognized is that our marker program is really weighted toward buildings and places and neighborhoods, and then no matter how worthy of a marker individuals may be, that they tend to fall toward the bottom in the scoring. So she wanted us to have a conversation with the committee about whether that was intentional, that was the way that the committee wanted to proceed, or did we need to look at our scoring again, which led to kind of a broader discussion and looking at marker criteria from multiple other programs across the country and the state of North Carolina. And so we provided this revised policy document and scoring tabulation to you committee members. And we also established minimums in each of the priority is not going to be rolled over and considered again without a substantial revision or sort of improvement in documentation about why this subject is worthy of a marker. So under priority 1, we added the criterion that the marker topic has the potential to educate the public. Under priority 2, we added the criterion that the marker topic is broadly significant to the history of Forsyth County or Winston-Salem. And then under priority 3, we added the criterion that the topic fills a gap in the narratives covered by existing historic markers, which were things that we felt reflected the intentions of the program to really get out the stories of underrepresented communities, which is what we're really trying to do with our marker program, and tell stories that people aren't familiar with. The other thing that the marker committee discussed and decided on is that we are going to review markers for individuals this year, but that this will be the last year that we'll consider a marker solely for an individual. It doesn't mean a site associated with an individual couldn't necessarily be nominated for a marker, but a marker just for an individual, this will be the last year the committee is going to consider those. So do any of the committee members have questions about any of those decisions or changes? Okay. All right. Hearing none, then do I have a motion to approve the marker program policies?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, CJ. Okay. Call on the roll for the last time. Cheryl. You're muted. Yeah, I see you trying to unmute. You can give us a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, CJ.
Aye.
Alana.
Aye.
Leanne.
Aye.
Noah.
Aye.
Artie.
Aye.
And Annette.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Now that that's done, very briefly, for those of you who may not be familiar with the marker program, it was first approved by the city in 2001. The first markers were installed in the city in the following year. The county got its first marker in 2013, and to date, we have 69 markers that have been approved. 68 of those are in the ground. We have 8 in the county, 59 in the city of Winston-Salem, and then the Village of Clemens, when they are interested in doing a marker, likes to have the commission manage that process. So we have 2 that are located in Clemens. This map shows the distribution of markers. The yellow circles are the placed and approved markers, and then the purple stars are the proposed markers that we are going to be hearing presentations about this evening. 2 markers are going to be funded in the city during 2023. The committee will make recommendations for funding at the December 7th Historic Resources Commission meeting. The staff drafts the marker inscriptions based on the applications, and then the commission reviews, edits, and approves the marker inscriptions. An added step that we are going to be doing this year is once staff has drafted the marker inscription, and worked with the committee to do that, we're going to actually be providing that marker inscription to our applicants and ask them to review and sign an acknowledgement saying, I've read this language and I'm happy with it, and work, communicate with your constituent groups to make sure that the marker really reflects what the community wants the story to be in terms of what's on the marker. And we will likely do that process before we actually take the language to the commission for approval. So once we've gone through the review and approval process, staff orders the marker and then works with city teams to place the markers. For those of you on the call who are the marker applicants, I do want you just to be aware, CWA Studios, which is the foundry that makes the markers, is pretty much the only name in the game across the country that does this, has an extremely long backlog. So markers are taking upwards of 6 months to get produced. So we will get the markers sometime in 2023, but we really don't know when. So we just have to be flexible in terms of planning events, unveiling events. They will likely be in the fall or the later part of next year. We will not have them in all likelihood in the spring. Our applications are scored based on 15 criteria and 3 priority groups. Our first priority group is our highest point total. So you can get a maximum of 25 points. And priority 1 And that the minimum, again, this is something new we're trying this year, but a 13-point minimum in this category. So as I mentioned, the marker topic has the potential to educate the public. It's a lesser known historic structure, neighborhood, site, event, organization, or individual. The marker topic addresses underrepresented or marginalized history or community. It's a structure or neighborhood of historic or cultural significance that's been demolished, or a historical or cultural event took place at a specific site. Our middle priority categories are each worth 3 points. The maximum then for this category would be 15 with a 7-point minimum. The marker topic is broadly significant to the history of the county or Winston-Salem. It's an endangered or threatened structure, neighborhood, or site. It's an existing structure or neighborhood with historical or cultural significance, or a historic designed landscape, such as a cemetery, farm, garden, or park, or it's an individual or organization with historical or cultural significance. And then finally, our lowest priority category, it's 1 point per criterion, so 5 points maximum, 2 points minimum. Topic fills a gap in narratives covered by existing historic markers. It contributes to a more equitable geographic distribution of markers, helps create a sense of place or identify an area, and recognizes a preserved or restored structure, neighborhood, or site. And then finally, we have application has scored in the top 5 for 2 consecutive years, but we do not have any applications that fall into that category, so we won't be awarding any points in that area tonight. So I'm going to briefly introduce the application, and then applicants, you all have a chance to tell you your stories, which is the best part. Committee members, after you listen to the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask those. That's great. And then members of the committee will be scoring each application based on these evaluation criteria. They'll send their scores back to me, and I'll tabulate and total those tomorrow and share the results with you on Thursday. And I said the 18th, but Thursday is the 17th. So excuse that error in my PowerPoint, but I'll be sharing the scores with y'all on Thursday. And then the 2 highest scoring applications for markers in the city of Winston-Salem will be the ones that are recommended to the commission for city awards. All right, so our first,
Heather,
yeah,
just like to note, Robert Leake has joined us on the committee, so we will mark him down as present.
Yes, thank you,
sorry,
Robert.
Sorry, I'm late. I just got off of work. I'm sorry about that, and I'll be on camera momentarily.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Right.
You made it for the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You missed all the kind of more boring
Yeah.
committee business, and now you get to hear the presentation.
Okay, cool.
All right. Our first application this evening is for Dr. Charlie Brady Hauser, activist, educator, and legislator. The presentation is being made by his daughter, Faye Hauser Price. The proposed location for the marker is on K Court Avenue at Dr. Brady Hauser's house. And then we've got a photo of him. So Faye, if you'll just let me know when you are ready for me to advance the slide, you're off.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for inviting me again to give this presentation. I'm honored to be here to represent my father. And I'm sure he would be tickled pink and wish that he would be in this meeting right now because he loved to be on committees. So Charlie Brady Hauser grew up as a farm boy in Yadkinville, North Carolina. Change slide. He was the third of 13 children born to the late Reverend Daniel Montgomery and Callie Victoria Hauser. It is now understood that both of his parents, and therefore he, were descendants of Theophilus Hauser, co-founder of Yadkinville, North Carolina, and relative of Kate Bidding Russell's family. This marker would commemorate the achievements of an able and industrious man of color and the positive actions he took to secure inclusion for himself and his class in an American dream from which he was systematically disenfranchised. Change slides. Dr. Charlie Brady Hauser came to Winston-Salem in 1936 as a young student at Winston-Salem Teachers College. After graduating, he married his college sweetheart, Lois Brown of Winston-Salem. And he taught at 14th Street School, except for a few years in South Carolina, Hendersonville, North Carolina, and the European War Theater. He remained an active member of the community until his death in 2007. Change, please. Charlie Hauser was a soldier in World War II as a member of the 582nd Ordnance Company. He and his unit earned citations for participating in 5 great battles of the Western European Front. His quest for equality led him to challenge the segregated army and seek an appointment as a warrant officer. He passed the examination twice. However, when he showed up at the office and to get the appointment, he was told by the supervisor that no N-word officers were going to be in this man's army. Change slides. Not to be deterred, he worked very hard and earned a good conduct medal on his release. He did not let segregation stop his pursuit of full citizenship rights. So Charlie Hauser tested the interstate Jim Crow laws in 1947 on his way from Winston-Salem to teach at West Virginia State College. He formally challenged segregation 9 years before Rosa Parks and 13 years before the sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina. He was included in the PBS documentary, You Don't Have to Ride Jim Crow. Change, please. He earned his doctorate of education at the University of Pennsylvania and then taught at Winston-Salem State University. Determined to make his whole community, both Black and white, the best that it could be, he enthusiastically participated in social, political, arts, education, mental health, and citywide volunteer organizations. Change slides, please. Dr. Hauser was a professor at Winston-Salem State U from 1956 to 77, where he was chairman of the Board of Education and director of teacher education, living in the Boston area, as the Black people called it, of Winston-Salem, as white flight finally afforded Blacks the opportunity to acquire those properties. Change slide, please. While at Winston-Salem State, he was Assistant Secretary Treasurer of the CIAA, where he developed a conference 1.6 rule prediction table in 1969 that helped schools more fairly evaluate student athletes for college admissions. Also, Dr. Hauser was a life membership of the National Education Association. Change, please. He successfully ran and won 2 terms in the North Carolina State Legislature, serving Winston-Salem citizenry during the 1983, 84, and the 1985, 86 terms. He participated actively in all local elections, personally taking people to the polls to vote. He served as judge and registrant at Paisley Precinct and Haynes Community Center Precinct, where he supervised elections. Change, please. Dr. Hauser had a heart for service for the Winston-Salem community. To that end, he was on the Forsyth Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, where he was named volunteer extraordinaire. He was on the Arts Council, was a trustee at Forsyth Tech Community College, on the Dixie Classic Fair Community, board chair, Northwestern Region ALANC, and Patterson Avenue YMCA, board member of Mental Health Association of Forsyth County, active with the American Heart Association, the Community Corrections Resources, Inc., and the Intermunicipal Court Community, dedicated to the prospect that he could add value in a leadership capacity, even in organizations where he previously was discriminated against. Dr. Hauser was an active member of the Tanglewood Beautification Council, an institution that until the late 1960s did not allow persons of African descent to participate in those activities. Change, please. Dr. Charlie Brady Hauser was named Professor Emeritus of Winston-Salem State U, was given an honorary doctor's degree of human letters, named to the board of visitors, and inducted into the Winston-Salem State U Hall of Fame. Change, please. He also had time for hobbies, and he loved to boat and camp and garden and do photography and beekeep. Change, please. As a boater, he and his wife, Lois Hauser, became members of the United States Power Squadrons and helped chart the North Carolina intercoastal waterways, receiving a Merit Mark Award in 1977. Change, please. He found time to mentor students, young and old, and be a parent to me and my daughter, my sister as well. Change, please. hosting 2 African and Korean students who attended Wake Forest University. Change, please. Dr. Charlie Brady Hauser was a spiritual person who was assistant superintendent of Sunday school and a trustee at Mount Zion Baptist Church, an NAACP Life Membership's chairman and treasurer of the Hauser Williams Russell Family Reunion that celebrated more than 100 years of reunions. He also helped to organize the neighborhood K-Court Community Club, which was dedicated to maintaining the highest quality of living for its members. A decorated war veteran, he died on Veterans Day at age 90. He was married to educator Lois Brown Hauser for 65 years. They had 2 children, actor, writer, director, Faye Hauser Price, yours truly, and Peaches Golding, Lord Lieutenant of Bristol, England for King Charles. Thank you for listening to this presentation and for considering my father for this marker.
Our committee members, do any of you all have questions or anything you need clarified about the application in order to help with your scoring?
Well, I just have to say that we have reviewed this applicant as worthy of a historic marker for a few years. And I will say that this gentleman is truly and was truly an exceptional individual in our community. And I think his achievements are outstanding, beyond outstanding. And I am very strongly in support of Dr. Hauser receiving a historic marker. He is, without a doubt, an outstanding member, or was an outstanding member of our community that I don't think has really been recognized as thoroughly as he should have been.
That's very touching. Thank you very much.
I have a question. This is Pastor Lee. Where will the historical marker be placed? Maybe I must have missed that. Is it going to be in a nearby neighborhood or?
The staff proposal, because I think, Faye, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the application first came in, I don't think there was a specific location selected. So the staff recommendation had been potentially on K-Court Avenue, which is where the family home is located in the Boston neighborhood off 25th Street, just a little bit south of there, kind of on the east side of Arbor Acres. But Winston-Salem State, the campus of Winston-Salem State would certainly be another potential location because that is where he was a professor. And there is or was a building on the campus that named in his honor. Is that correct, Faye?
I believe that they are renaming it. It was originally named for his uncle who helped to build the school.
Okay.
And I think they are transitioning it to also include my father.
Okay. So yes. So the campus of Winston-Salem State or the family home, I think are 2 potential locations. Certainly the marker would be more visible if it was somewhere, on the campus of Winston-Salem State, if we could make that happen.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think this is the first time I've ever heard about Dr. Hauser, and I'm also a graduate with Winston-Salem State University, but I think Winston-Salem State University, that'll be a great place as well, especially to bring the intergenerational change mindset to our young scholars on campus, especially the way Dr. Hauser was able to be influential in this city. So I just wanted to know, just in case. All right, thank you.
Sure.
So if we approve the marker, then when and how does it get decided where it gets placed? If the committee votes to approve the marker today, and then how would that decision get made?
Well, I think if the committee tonight wanted to, if everybody on the committee agreed, or you all wanted to take a vote that you would prefer to see it at Winston-Salem State, if one is awarded, you can make that decision tonight, and direct staff, and then that's what we'll do.
Okay.
If the applicant, if they would be happy with that.
Yeah, Miss Fay, I wanted to ask what the wishes of the family were between the family home or the education center at Winston-Salem State, where the marker would most prominently affect young minds or communities members as they would pass by and read it.
Well, certainly there would be more traffic and more eyes on it at Winston-Salem State. The community where the house is transitioning again to a mixed race community. We have quite a lot of African Americans there, some Caucasians there, and Hispanics in the neighborhood as well. And Arbor Acres is moving further toward us. So I don't know how long that community is actually going to stand there. I don't know, like your city planning stuff. So I'm floored and honored that you considering it. And so the family is behind whatever, if you decide to do it, would be that you also think might be the best place to put it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Faye. Truly a remarkable individual that has gone under the radar, as you may say.
So can we take a straw poll, let's say, of the committee, and if you would prefer, you think the location at Winston-Salem State would be more appropriate because it's more visible, can you indicate so? And if that's the direction the committee would prefer, then if this marker is awarded, that's where staff will look first. So CJ, Winston-Salem State or the family home?
I think Winston-Salem State, but I can be persuaded either way.
Otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Leanne?
Well, I'm with CJ. I think it would certainly get more visibility at Winston-Salem State. However, I understand the sentimental value and the recognition that it could provide for the neighborhood.
Right.
So I'm either way.
Okay.
Sorry.
Annette?
I agree. It would get more visibility at Winston-Salem State. I guess my only question would be, what procedure will we get permission from Winston-Salem State, or is that just considered? If
We
not,
have
I
to-
think.
Well, if we put it, so we have a procedure for getting encroachment agreements with NCDOT. They give us easements fairly regularly when we place them in the state right of way. So we could work with the administration at Winston-Salem State and NCDOT if we're going to put it in a roadway right of way on the campus, and that should not be difficult.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I think either one would be appropriate, but definitely it would have more visibility on the campus.
Noah, you said Winston-Salem State, is that right?
I mean, for me, a gentleman of this prominence, to have a historical marker placed, I would want to be assured that that place where the marker was located had a permanence over time and was in a protected spot. And I would just feel that Winston-Salem State might offer a more perpetual place for a marker to rest.
Yeah.
And than a neighborhood.
Alana?
I agree with all that.
Cheryl.
Of course, I agree. I'm always partial to neighborhoods and people in the neighborhood having a real sense of place and who was there and what that meant. And he's such a strong individual. I mean, Paisley High School is there. There are just so many kids to meet in the area that could learn from the marker. I'm not saying put it on K Court. I think it should go over onto Thurman Street. Is a possibility somewhere on Thurman in that vicinity of K Court, because it will not get the visibility that it should get, but on K Court, but somewhere on Thurman where all of these students and young people, a younger group of people would be able to see it. To me, it's important, but I like Winston-Salem State also.
Okay. All right. Artie has weighed in the chat that he would prefer Winston-Salem State. So Robert, I think you are the last committee member, excuse me. Do you have a preference?
Yes, Winston-Salem State.
Okay. All right. So what I'm hearing from the committee is leaning toward Winston-Salem State, although people are willing to explore the home if that proves difficult or challenging to do. But so we will keep you committee members. If this one is awarded a marker, we will certainly keep you all informed, but we'll probably explore Winston-Salem State first location there. All right. Thank you so much, Faye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faye.
Oh, thank you.
Our next application was going to be from Ephesus Junior Academy, but they actually had a school event tonight that caused a conflict, and so the marker applicant could not be at our meeting tonight. So I indicated that we would just withdraw it for this year and hold on to it for next year to be reconsidered at that time. So our next application is for the Centerville Historic District. James Barrett Wilson Jr. Is the applicant, and he is with us tonight on the phone. The proposed location for the marker is the traffic circle at Fayetteville and Waughtown Streets, and you see a photograph of that location on the slide here. And Mr. Wilson, can you see us? Can you see or no?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, so I've got your title slide up. Please just let me know when you are ready for me to advance a slide. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
I can see that first slide, and thank you for having me. This Centerville Historic District is on the National Register of Historic Places. I was just really impressed with their cataloging of the neighborhood of over 90 structures or 90 buildings, 91 buildings. This lady, Sherry Joins Wyatt, submitted, I was just amazed, she's sitting up in Virginia. Did she come down here to our little neighborhood? And, I'm not sure how she compiled all this, but I was just really impressed with that. But Centerville, as my slides go, I guess, Bradley, you could go to the second slide. Yes. Centerville is named Centerville because it's halfway between Old Salem and Waughtown. Old Salem being settled or started around 1766, and then Waughtown around 1806. Centerville grew up, I guess, around 1900 to 1950. Many of the houses here, and this is the gateway to the School of the Arts. The neighborhood is mostly intact. There's been some development around it that's taken out some of the old buildings, but a lot of these houses, they've had a bathroom added onto them. They're all built around 1910, 1915. And it just represented, hardworking community that they it's also one of the most diverse areas today in the city, the Walltown and Centerville area. Let's see, we can go to my suggested marker text. And yes, thank you. That's it. It generally shows the location. And I think a sign like this up there at the traffic circle would be highly visible, and it would kind of fill the gap between the markers in Old Salem and any markers in Walltown, which, people come down here, and I take them around Walltown and show them how much history we have down here. The Nissan building that made a lot of wagons. It's like the General Motors. Here in the area, we have that old Shell station over on Peachtree and Sprague, and I've sent pictures of that to people around the United States, and they just go nuts over it. Apparently, there's only 4 or 5 or 6 of those things left in the United States. So, some man up across from Wake Wagner's appliance shop that got his name, but he's sitting in a building that was Richard Childress' first mechanic shop. There's a lot of history down here in the Walltown area, and I think putting a sign out there for Centerville would fill a gap in that between Old Salem and Walltown. And thank you for hearing me, and that's all I have for now. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Committee members,
I have
do you
a
all?
question.
Yes, please, Cheryl, go ahead.
On the suggested marker text that we were sent, it lists that the area signifies the rich history of the settlement of Southside, and it goes on to talk about Sunnyside and Bellevue. I didn't see that noted on what was shown on his PowerPoint. And basically what's on the PowerPoint is already on a historic district, and there's so many people or professions that I think could be alluded to on that marker to, really uplift the community and the people in it. So I was just concerned about the marker text.
And I would agree with that, Cheryl, completely. And I'm a fossil, I'm a dinosaur. And when I worked for the city in Heather's capacity, is when we did the National Register districts for the whole sort of Walltown, Bellevue, and Centerville communities. And to me, Centerville has always been unique from the Walltown area. It was very complete. The housing was very original and very little intrusions. And sadly, over the years, be it, I hate to say it, sadly, be it Winston-Salem School of the Arts, but we have seen intrusions into the Centerville community. And it was in fact a remarkable and unique community. And I really don't think, I think it's kind of been the redheaded stepchild, if you will. I think Centerville is something worthy of being recognized and hopefully then therefore preserved, even as it is now. because it really is. Centerville was unique, and distinct somewhat from Walltown or Bellevue or Sunnyside or the other areas. It's not a large community, but it really maintains, I think, still a wonderful understanding of what was going on at the time Centerville was developed. So anyways, that's what I've got to say about Centerville. So
Yeah, I agree. I was doing a little bit of research for something, I think enslaved people occupations after slavery or something. And there was an African-American tailor, opened up a tailor shop in Centerville. So,
yes.
So, and I think from reading, all the attachments to his document, I guess you did all that research.
Yes.
Leanne, when you talked about, I think it was 50% African-American or 30% or something. So it seemed to be.
I confess, I don't know the percentages,
Mm-hmm.
but Cheryl, you're correct. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, I think it should be, I would like to see a marker there because the area looks, has sort of a blighted look, but I think it has this rich history that people need to know about. So
you have hit the nail on the head.
Yes. We could get that. If it was approved, then the text could really uplift, the
yes.
Yeah. I would agree. I think we can all agree that there's interesting history there that we want to be able to tell more people about. But I think the marker could be more specific in naming some of that versus just the location, which is mostly what's referenced in the marker text.
I would agree, Alana.
And I agree as well with that, going up on the South area, Winston-Salem. And thank you, Cheryl, for lifting that up, Miss Harry. Sure. I wasn't allude to this at all. I just remember, names of Bellevue, Sprague, and of course Eaststein. So I think this is some history that needs to be told in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Other committee members, anybody else questions for the applicant? All right. Looks like none. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for bringing this application forward and for your presentation tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all for having me.
Oh.
Our next application is for James and Parthenia Ford. Their daughter, I believe, Gloria Ford, is the applicant, although James Ford Jr. actually will be the one speaking to us about Mr. Ford and his dairy business. You can see a picture of him there with his milk crates, which is, I think, fantastic. And the proposed location, again, this one, I believe, came in without a proposed location, or it might have been the family home, but looking to give it a little bit more visibility. One suggestion that staff would make is the intersection of Patterson and Glen Avenues, where the pet dairy facility is located, because he was a pet dairyman. So, it's a site that's really associated with a really important economic contributor, to the city of Winston-Salem and his part in that. But Mr. Ford, you ready?
Yes.
All right, take it away, please.
Yes, I want to thank you for this opportunity to give me this presentation on behalf of my father. As a child growing up, I was born in '59. My father went and graduated from Winston-Salem State in 1948. And he began his profession as a route dairyman for Biltmore Dairy right after coming out of the service. In 1955, he eventually moved his position up to sales route operator. And in '55, he left Biltmore and started his own business as an independent distributor, operating operating from the home I was raised in on Rochester Street, which has been since then declared eminent domain. Everything's been taken away and torn down. This is the beginning of the long career in which he delivered dairy products to thousands of homes, daycares, stores, schools, and institutions. The school contracted my father during the 1983-84 school year to provide 20% of the system's volume, which include low-fat milk, cottage cheese, vanilla milkshake base, and buttermilk. This was a significant accomplishment for my father 20 years ago. To go on to say, he was a distributor for pet milk. He became a distributor for pet milk distributor for 25 years. He resumed his ties with Biltmore in the 1980s and continued with the economy until competition and economy and rising expenses forced the business to close. With that being said, he was still well known as a civic leader. He served on the Human Relations Commission in 1980. He was honored for outstanding leadership and dedicated service as chairperson of New Horizon Fair Housing Committee from 1981 to 1985. Starting in 1971, he served as chairman of the Patterson Avenue Y for 8 years, no longer than anyone else had. During this tenure, he was credited with changing the Y concept from that youth recreation involving the whole family, dedicating the first cardiovascular fitness center and pulmonary black at the YMCA at Winston-Lake. Excuse me, y'all, I'm turning my paper. Southeast at beginning process to attract resources for the construction of the present Winston-Lake YMCA. He was also a founding member of the Delaware Presbyterian Church. At Delaware, he serves as elder, treasurer, and Sunday school teacher. Additionally, he was elected secretary-treasurer of the local Youth for Christ and Youth Guidance Board. In 1994, Delaware presented my father with a special Lifetime Stewardship Award. He was a longtime member of the Sportsman Club, serving as president in 1963 and 64. In 1986, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was also Winston-Salem Investment Club in 65 and 66, board of directors of the Negro Heritage Library in North Carolina, and the committee with the Winston-Salem Christian Education Committee. He was also an Army veteran of World War II and a Prince Hall Mason. In 1954, Outstanding Citizenship from the United Fund, Thomas R. Neely Lehman of the Year Award from the YMCA in 1980 and 1984, Distinguished Gentleman Award of the Sophisticated Gents. I just want to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to share that with you, and hopefully you take this into consideration for the marker for my father. Thank you so much. Do anybody have any questions?
No.
Hello?
Daryl, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I want to say something. We have seen this application before, and from its onset, I was so moved by this man's history. He was one of the working class in Winston-Salem at a very, shall we say, difficult time. He was an amazing man. He was a working man. And I will say this, just as an aside, he chose good companies to work for. My favorite mug, coffee mug, is still my favorite coffee mug, which was from Biltmore Dairy. Which I loved. And pet milk to this day is my favorite milk.
Thank you.
So he chose great companies to work with. And I'm so impressed with what African Americans had to work with during a very difficult time. It had to be. I can't imagine. I'm white. I can't begin to imagine what it was like. But he was an amazing, and his wife, they were amazing individuals. And
Thank you so much.
To some degree, I hate that from this point forward, we will no longer be recognizing individuals, because there are so many individuals significant in Winston-Salem's history. But I am fully supportive that your father and his wife should receive a historic marker. I think their contributions have been amazing. And
thank you. I thank you so much.
So I'm gonna shut my mouth, let anybody else say what they want to say. But I've said what I want to say.
I thank you again.
Anybody else from the committee? Cheryl?
I think the tie-in maybe to the pet company, that the marker location would, I think, maybe strengthen this particular submission because of the reference to so many people, I guess, in the area with pet and
yes,
the milkman kind of story.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
I remember the milkman. Cheryl, do you remember the milkman?
But of course, I was hoping to see glass milk bottles, but I see those are the plastic carts there. But you know. But yeah, I'm just thinking of ways to sort of strengthen the submission.
Yes.
To me, that would be the way in terms of the location of the marker.
I would agree.
Maybe tying it, into that space.
Thank you for that, Cheryl.
We have to get permission from PET to put the script of the wording, the encrypted wording of PET into the marker.
You know, I mean, that's a good question. I would think no.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's like if they write about the company in the newspaper or whatever, you know, I mean, it's a fair use of a business name. So I think no.
And it's going into the right of way, correct?
Right. The marker would be located in city-owned property or potentially state-owned property near the dairy, I think would be the proposed location.
Okay, cool. I would say thank you, Brother Ford, for showcasing your father. Chairwoman, I do, or Miss Harry, I do not remember the milkman. But well,
it definitely then meets that other category.
Oh yes, ma'am.
To educate the public, right?
Oh
yeah, that's right. That's right. So I will make sure that I will talk to my father about the milkman as well. But with that said, I think that this will Mr. Ford has contribute to that area of Patterson. So many times the area is overlooked. I know it's going through a revitalization, redevelopment from the city right now, adding different shops and retail space as well. But still, there is the history that needs to be told about individuals like Mr. Ford, who has labored within that community, and just the lives that he's been able to touch by delivering something simple that, that we just take for granted. When we put in the refrigerator every morning, a glass of milk or a carton of milk, whatever it may be. So I think that area can contribute to something like this. And especially those ones that I was intentionally with that question to ask about what PET we have to have permission from PET to use their name, only because I think that the employees at PET, they will actually be able to read about Mr. Ford as someone contribute and worked in their company, but also was able to branch off to have their own. So I think that is such a testimony, especially at that time, of African Americans in our city. So thank you, Chairwoman, for letting me speak.
And Madam Chair, I do remember, I'm a little older than Pastor Leek. I too remember his presence in the community, and just as important as he was an example of an independent businessman. But if you look at his other affiliations throughout the community, that during that time he held positions within the African American community that definitely were valued and influential.
I mean, as a staff member, with both Mr. Ford and Dr. Hauser, like the amount of civic engagement and leadership and the commitment of time to the community and investing in giving back and, mentor, like engaging with young people and doing things to support the community. I mean, it's beyond admirable.
It certainly is. And,
thank you so much.
I just, honestly, I get teary-eyed when I read this history. I mean, I'm white, and we don't get it to a large degree. And I read this history, and it is so phenomenal, and just, it's just outstanding. What African Americans were able to achieve admirably and lovingly, and with giving back to their communities. And we don't have a lot of that anymore. And I'm just so thankful for people like your father.
Thank you so much.
Who did that.
Anybody else from the committee have questions? Are we ready? All right, it looks like we are ready to move forward. Our next application is for St. Benedict the Moor Catholic Church, and we have Gerald McCoy. That's what I thought, but you don't have your last name on there, and anyway, we have Mr. McCoy here to talk to us about this Catholic church that also was a really significant cultural institution in the Black community. The proposed location is where Star 5 is located on the map on 12th Street. And with that, please, Gerald, just let me know when you're ready for me to advance the slide and take it away.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gerald McCoy, and I'm a parishioner at St. Benedict the Moor Catholic Church. Well, I'm here to tell you a little bit about our church and the contributions that we have made to both the East Winston-Salem community and the community at large. Next slide, please. St. Benedict the Moor is an historically African-American parish located in East Winston-Salem at 1625 East 12th Street. It has been a part of Winston-Salem's African-American community since 1940. In the 40s, African Americans were not afforded the rights and privileges of other Catholics in the Catholic Church. We were relegated to the back benches and the balconies of those churches, and were not permitted to fully participate in parish life. So several families in the 1940s got together and petitioned the Bishop of Raleigh, of which Winston-Salem was located at that time, to establish a parish for African American Catholics in the Winston-Salem area. Of the 92 parishes and missions in the Diocese of Charlotte, where we're currently located, which encompasses basically the western half of North Carolina, there are 4 historically Black Catholic parishes and missions, and St. Benedict is one of those 4. It is now a multi-ethnic, multicultural parish charged with serving the spiritual needs of the Winston-Salem community. It was founded during an era of segregation to provide Black Catholics in Winston-Salem a place where they could worship with dignity and freedom not afforded to them in the churches of that era. On Sunday morning, November 24th, 1940, St. Benedict de Moor became a parish, celebrating its first Mass in the chapel of Howard Robertson Funeral Home. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. Howard Robertson Funeral Home here in Winston-Salem on Patterson Avenue. Yep. The parish was allowed there to worship there until the completion of the church building in 1941, and we are still worshiping in that same building. We recently uncovered a newsletter from the church from 2001 that noted that the builder, Mr. George Dumas, who built the building and subsequently moved away from the Winston-Salem area, was back in visiting the area in 2001 and was given a tour of the church that he had built some 60 years ago. And he said, what a satisfaction it was to visit the church. St. Benedict de Moor, excuse me, built 61 years ago by my brother workmen and my supervision. The majority of the workers were Black, and the fellowship plus humor of all involved was great. And I thought it was, I was really pleased to find out that the majority of the workmen building our church were Black. The church was named in honor of St. Benedict de Moor, a Black Franciscan friar, and the patron saint of African Americans. Next slide, please. Next, I'd like to discuss some of the contributions to our community in the field of education by our parish. Next slide, please. The Sisters of St. Francis from Allegheny, New York were invited to Winston-Salem by our parish to assist in our educational needs. In 1946, St. Anne's Academy was opened, a boarding school serving Catholic and Protestant young ladies of color, both locally and from several southeastern states. This school was supported and established by our parish. Next slide, please. In September 1950, St. Benedict Grammar School was opened to service the educational needs of the African American community. Next slide. Some of its many graduates, here are a few that might be familiar to the local community. Mr. Togo West, who served as Secretary of Veterans Affairs during the Clinton administration. Mrs. Evelyn Terry, member of the NC House of Representatives and former member of the Winston-Salem City Council. Mr. Gregory Turner, former Assistant City Manager of the City of Winston-Salem. And Mr. Cedric Russell, owner director of Russell Funeral Home, a prominent Winston-Salem African-American business, and who was also the son of former Winston-Salem Alderman and Mayor Pro Tem Carl Russell. I'd also like to add that information from one of our current church members who attended that school. She noted that many of the African-American medical people who came here to Winston-Salem to work at the KDB Reynolds Hospital sent their children to school at St. Benedict's Grammar School. Next slide, please. Next, I'd like to talk about a little bit of the missionary work of our church. Next slide, please. In 1969, St. Benedict de Moor assumed spiritual and financial responsibility for its first mission. Our Lady of Fatima Chapel opened in downtown Winston-Salem. It was sponsored by St. Benedict de Moor. After several years, the diocese decided to turn the responsibility of that mission over to Our Lady of Mercy Church here in Winston-Salem. Next slide. In 1970, Catholics in Kernersville became the second mission of St. Benedict de Moor Church. This mission was supported by our parish until 1973, when the mission was raised to the status of a full parish and became Holy Cross Catholic Church in Kernersville. Next slide, please. In August 1987, Good Shepherd Church in King was established as a mission church of St. Benedict the Moor Parish, and it is currently still a mission of our parish. Next slide, please. In 1990, the parish began what we refer to as our migrant ministry, providing food and clothing to migrant workers in Yadkin County. In 1999, the first Spanish Mass was celebrated for the Latino community at our church. As a result of this outreach, the parish now has a substantial Hispanic membership. Next slide, please. Our parish has always been committed to serving the community. Next slide, please. Its many activities have included the Resurrection Summer Day Camp, which partnered with St. Stephen's Episcopal Church and Delaware Presbyterian Church to offer a 4 to 5 week program of summer activities for the children of the community. Next slide. In 2004, the Community Knowledge Center was established at the church, sponsored by Winston-Salem State University, offering classes for senior citizens, tutoring for middle school students, and income tax services for the Hispanic community. Next slide, please. Also working with WinstonNet, a local organization dedicated to closing the digital divide in our community, the church sponsored a computer lab for use by anyone needing access to the internet. Next slide. The church has also been a food distribution center working with Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina. Next slide. Finally, in closing, I would like to say another reason that we are especially interested in having a marker as our site has to do with the changing demographics of our parish. If the current trends continue, our parish will eventually cease to be an African-American parish, and we would like it to be remembered that our parish was originally established as an African-American parish created to serve the African-American community of our city. And thank you for hearing me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Committee members, do y'all have questions?
Well, just, you know me, Heather, I'm going to just chime right on in there. Having worked with the city of Winston-Salem for many, many years, well, I want to first say that one of my very dearest friends, although she abandoned us and moved to Charlotte, Tony Tuppence.
Yes, I know her.
You know Tony?
Yes, I've met her several times.
Tony is a lovely woman and was a faithful member of your congregation.
Right.
And you know, I think it is so unique that we in Winston-Salem have one of the few historically African American Catholic churches and resources, because that's not a small thing. Not a small thing. One thing that I will have to express my dismay over, because I was working with the city at that time, was when the Catholic Diocese of Charlotte determined that the Bishop Kyle's house on 14th Street should be demolished. And I think that was a really unfortunate incident.
Yes, that was the home of St. Anne's Academy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I think it is a good, solid application. And I really want to express my appreciation to not only you, but to your members of the congregation.
I'll be happy to relay that to them.
Thank you so much.
of course, my only thing again is maybe the marker text, and I say that we did a piece on African American historical African American elementary and high schools, and Cedric Russell sort of pulled my coat and said St. Anne's was not included. And that was because that just wasn't a part of my reference frame. I didn't know that, but I think the education piece that so many people went through. What were the Catholic schools? The Black Catholic schools, St. Anne's and
St. Benedict.
St. Benedict, yeah. And then I think that Franciscan daycare that building used to belong to you. You all
Yes.
over there?
Yes,
Right.
it belonged to the parish, but it was leased out to a daycare center.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, my son went to that daycare, but
Oh, did he?
I was just to sort of focus on all of the great, if we could get that in there, the great things that came out, the education piece, the school. I know you say to meet the needs, but I'd just like to know a little bit more about the needs, what those needs were.
Yeah.
Well, we're amenable to any changes that you think would be helpful in the text of the marker.
Okay.
Anybody else from the committee have any questions for Gerald? I'm not seeing any. Okay. All right. So we are going to move on to, thank you, Gerald, very much for telling the story of St. Benedict the Moor.
Yes.
I appreciate hearing it and learning about that history. All right, our last marker application that we're going to hear tonight, unfortunately, the applicant for Villa Maria Anna Academy is not on tonight, so we'll follow up with them and keep their application for next year. So our last presentation will be from the Spencers, Will Spencer, for the Winston-Salem Laundry. You can see a photograph of it there on the right-hand side of the slide, and the proposed location is at 1102 Ivy Avenue, where the building is located, kind of in the new Industry Hill neighborhood. So with that said, Will, take it away, and please just let me know when you are ready for me to advance the slide.
Okay. Well, thank you all for having me. I think the Historic Resource Commission is a great addition to what we do in Winston-Salem and Forsyth. So thank you for all your hard work and help. So the Winston-Salem Laundry, the oldest, largest, and best, was operated by my grandfather from 1936 to 1964. When he passed, he was president of the laundry. My father became president from 1964 until 1979 when it closed. My grandmother was, at that time when my grandfather passed, she became the majority owner. Not only was she the majority owner, but she worked in the back in all the departments of 1102 Ivy Avenue. Yeah, and you can change. Yeah, I was going to change, but yeah. So 1102 is basically surrounded by B.F. Huntley's furniture factory that is now being redeveloped into Two Cities Church and the Brunson Elementary School, which I'm really excited about. It's been a long time coming to see two great things happen right there to the left and right and behind of these buildings in 1102. So you can change on that. In brief, Winston-Salem Laundry, 1102 Ivy Avenue, was founded in 1895 by a man named James Shepard. I believe the original location was at 3rd and Liberty Street from some pictures I'd seen on Forsyth Digital. My grandparents purchased the property in 1936 and founded a new corporation, which Winston-Salem Laundry Incorporated. My grandmother became the majority owner in 64. With all of that, the buildings themselves are, and I sent y'all a Dropbox with the pictures. The buildings are 95% to its original builds. In the second slide, I don't know, can you back up, Heather, on one? The second slide with the trucks parked in the front, that looks like it's about 1926. The building to the right was originally the Cherry Cola bottling plant. And somewhere in the early 40s, when my father came back from the war, he loved construction. He joined the two buildings together, and the right side was the dry cleaning side. So don't know the history of the Cherry Cola plant, but it has its own history itself, but then became the complete Winston-Salem Laundry and Dry Cleaners. So I go back to the next slide. As you see, the building is there at the 11th Street and Ivy, and basically the buildings now are 37,000 square feet, sit on about 0.7 acres of a lot. So it's historic in its own way. If you go to the next slide. As they said, the oldest, largest, best. The laundry employed nearly 125 people at its height, with about 80% of the majority women with historical ties to washwomen. The laundry provided its services to hotels, motels in town, and offered home delivery and counter services. Also provided cold storage for furs and other valuables. 1102, what we called when we were kids, it was the cold storage. It had a big vault. It was also recognized as a fallout shelter. The signs are still above the big door, the big steel door that still exists today, which I thought was pretty cool. And correct with period signage. So next slide. So I believe it's a true relic. The operations were an integral part of the neighborhood. Unique to the age of the property, there are still pieces of equipment related to the laundry service building that were never removed, including sewing machines, shirt presses, laundry baskets, and other pieces to support equipment. So it operated for the original period after the laundry for another 20 years as Action Drives, which is a cousin of mine that had a supply house for parts and pieces. The building, it's not so much what I understood and some of the research I did. It's not so much about the building, but it was how it served its community and the people it employed, which I found fascinating, because me as a child, I spent my childhood there. Basically on Saturdays and Sundays after church, we got to ride in the big X-Tractor. But all the people that worked there, in every department, everybody was like, it was one big family. I know that the day that it closed in 1979, one of the hardest things that I had to do, my father, unfortunately, health wasn't well. The business was not everybody, as he said, everybody got a washer and dryer at home, and the hotels and the hospitals built their own laundries. In November or late October of 79, I went to tell everyone that Friday was the last day, and that we were going to cease service there at 1102 and merged it with a laundry in High Point. It's called Dutch Laundry. And it was, I still remember it, I was 19, but I had grown up with all of these people that worked there. And I think there was about 20 some people still left at that time. So with that, I learned a lot about life and learned a lot about business at an early age. So next page. Yeah. So suggested marker text, what can I say? There's so many different directions. Y'all did such a great job with everything for Mr. Huntley's marker at 1201 Patterson. I think it's historic. The building itself being 95% complete. The operation of the building from the 20s through the 70s, what it did as far as a community. Everybody had to work somewhere. So it's a great building. I have great admiration for my father and my grandfather for running the business that long, and I know how hard it is to do that. So hopefully I can get this first part started, get it recognized as we did for Brunson Middle School and two cities, that we can do something great with this building and restore it and keep it part of the community and part of Industry Hill. Thank you for your time.
Committee members, do you all have questions?
No, but you know me, I have to talk. I think this site, number one, and I'm embarrassed to admit it, I had no idea about this building. I didn't even know it existed. I had no idea about its history until I read about it. And I was amazed. The building is still there. B, the contributions that were made predominantly by African-American women, and 3, predominantly by women, which this is sort of the year of celebrating women's involvement and commitment to historic preservation. I really was. I was stunned. I had no idea. And I've been around, like I said, I'm a fossil. I've been around forever, and I had no idea about this. And I was fascinated to learn about the history. And Lord knows, I have called Kriegsman's twice a year to get my stuff stored. So I understand about cold storage, but anyways, I really, I thank you for your commitment, not only to this building, but to this business and the contributions that have been made predominantly by African-American women. So there.
Anybody else from the committee have questions?
I thought this was also really interesting and was great to learn about this history. And just kind of a similar thought for the marker text, which is as what we've talked about with 2 of the other ones, that I think there's more specifics that could be worked in there to make it stronger, more meaningful, have more educational power. Yes. So for that, regarding this marker and those other ones that we talked about, like, do we can approve these or, vote them that we think they're worthy of a marker, and then the text gets tweaked later? Can you clarify how that works?
Yeah, so you all will score, I would say, based on not just what has been suggested as the marker text, but really more holistically the application and what you've heard from the presentations about because the whole point of this, right, is to recognize history and to get people to connect with history. So if there's stuff in the application that you think would be beneficial to have in the marker text, or that you heard tonight about why this site is important to the community, score it based on that. And then the text will get worked out between staff and the committee and the applicants once the awards are made. But the awards really should be made on the holistic nature of the application and what you've heard. And I have good news. I managed to get in touch with Katie Williams for the Villa Marie Anna Academy, which is our last. So we are going to hear one more presentation. But before we move to that, I just want to see if anybody else has comments or questions for Mr. Spencer. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we will move to Katie, but Katie, you also missed this part of our chatter before the meeting. So Will Spencer, our last applicant, is the great grandson of B.F. Huntley, whose house this was, that you are nominating. So there's this really interesting kind of, I don't know, connection. It's really, I find that one of the most fascinating things about how interwoven the story of the history of Winston-Salem is. There's always connections. So our last application for tonight is for the Villa Marie Anna Academy. Our applicant is Bishop McGinnis Catholic High School, represented by Katie Williams. And the proposed location is on Country Club Road at the site of the school. So Katie, with that, you can take it away. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I have this on my agenda for tomorrow. And so when I saw your message, I was like, oh my gosh. So I apologize for that. Just a little bit of history about the school. I know you mentioned someone's name who used to live in this house, I guess. But it is on Country Club Road, 2900 Country Club Road. And it was in the early 1950s, the Sisters of St. Joseph, who are nuns in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they actually took a train to Winston-Salem, and they came here to live in a convent, which is still existing over on Georgia Avenue by St. Leo's Catholic Church. And they came here to ask the Bishop of Raleigh at the time, because there was no Diocese of Charlotte, to ask the Bishop of Raleigh if they could start a school for girls in Winston-Salem. And so at the time, the area was growing a little bit, and the Catholic community was growing here, specifically in the Bible Belt. And so they got permission from the bishop to start a school. And they started the school, and it was called the Villa Marie Anna Academy in the place that is right now 2900 Country Club Road. So they started with just a couple girls, and they ended up adding boys. And then they moved to what is currently on Link Road, it's Our Lady of Mercy Elementary School. Currently, it was Bishop McGinnis Memorial High School. It opened in 1959. And the house went up for sale in the early 70s. And the woman who still lives there to this day, Mrs. Smith, she sent her kids to school through St. Leo's and through Bishop McGinnis. And she sent, I think, 7 kids through school there. And then the oldest daughter's 6 children all went to Bishop McGinnis and actually just graduated, the last one. But Mrs. Smith still lives in that house on Country Club Road. And so the idea was that we would try to get the marker while we still had someone in our own community living in that space, just as kind of a fun little tidbit. But a few things, it did start as an all-girls school. They added boys. Currently today, Bishop McGinnis is in Kernersville and has 450 students. But something that kind of triggered my interest was during segregation. It was one of the first schools to allow African Americans to attend with the other students. And so I've always found that interesting. And I think the biggest thing for me is that it's the only Catholic school, and still currently is the only Catholic high school here. So I don't know how much information you want me to give, or how much you want me to sort of plea, but that's just a little bit of history. The nuns on that live in the convent on Georgia Avenue, the last 3 of them left in 2021. So they were the last 3. And over the years, there was at one point 27 nuns in that convent. And the last 3 that we had assigned here to us left in 2021. And the convent is now being converted for the priests at the church. But the woman who lives in the house on Country Club Road currently is 98 years old, sent all of her kids through school. And when she bought the house, she was driving through the neighborhood. They were moving here from up north. And she was driving through and she's like, what about that house? I have 7 kids. And he's like, oh, no, you don't want that house. You don't want to live in that house. It was a school. It was, you know, it was not a home. And the one of the children, when they went upstairs to look at the house, saw her name written on one of the hooks. And it wasn't her hook, but it was her name. And so she said she always remembered that when they bought the house. And so they've renovated the inside and it is a home now, but it was a school at one point.
Committee members, do you all have questions?
Well, I had always heard, yes, that it was a school for many, many years. And I don't know whether I don't know whether you can corroborate this or not, but at some point, I think Reynolds Laster married one of the daughters. And I think they've since divorced. But he married one of the daughters who lived in the house with the mother.
Still in
because they opened.
And the Smith family, because I know the Smith family moving until it was.
So Katie, the background, this B.F. Huntley company here in Winston-Salem, and he was very involved in civic issues and a big Baptist in town. The house was designed by Charles Barton Keene, who also designed Rinalda House. So like it's a well-known, significant house. Will Spencer is B.F. Huntley's great grandson.
Will Spencer is my husband's friend. He doesn't realize it. Chip Williams is my husband.
I know Chip Williams. It's a small world.
So Will, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you know about the history of the house.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
So I have the original deed where my great grandfather bought from Noah's great uncle William Neal Reynolds the land. It was 18 acres. I have the original blueprints for the house. And he built the house in 1924. And as Mr. Reynolds, he lived in it a very brief time. He lived in it less than a year before he passed in 1925. So from that, my great-grandmother lived in the house until 1949 when she passed. And I told Heather earlier that the story was she never stayed in the winter because it took 4 or 5 train coal loads full of coal to heat it. And she lived on 5th Street during the winter. So from 49 to 54, 55, it was empty. And I know the Catholic Church or school were trying to figure out a location. And I found some paperwork probably 6 or 7 months ago. It was kind of funny that my grandfather's son, B.F. Huntley Jr., had sent to his sisters that they had an offer for the house for $50,000 for the school. And his remarks were, sell it, sell it, sell it. So I'd met Dr. Smith. I used to stop by and see him. Actually gave him some copies of the original floor plans and some of the paperwork that I have for the house 2 decades ago or better. And he loved the house. And in between that period, I'm not really sure. I know that there is a story, and it was looked at for Forsyth Country Day to make it, when they were starting Forsyth Country Day, it was a possible location for Forsyth Country. I think it was, I'd always understood that the nuns had moved from Winston to Charlotte. I didn't realize that they stayed in Winston on Link Road. I had no idea. So I learned something new.
Yeah. If you drive Georgia, where St. Leo's school church is, drive up Georgia.
Yeah.
And the school's on Springdale.
Right.
There's a huge brick house, huge. And it's the convent. And at one point there was 23 or 27 nuns that lived in there. They put a huge extension on the back, and They lived there from 1954 to 2021.
So why did the nuns move out?
The last three that we had, they don't have the vocations anymore.
No, I'm talking about Country Club Road, Mr. Huntley's house. Do you know why they moved in the early 70s?
I don't know why they moved. I've been told two different stories that the nuns never actually lived in the house while the school was there.
Okay.
That they just, it was just
This
school.
is cool. Okay.
But I've also heard that some of the nuns did live there. I have the original document that one of the nuns who came on the train wrote. And I could, I'd be happy to share that information with you. I didn't think it was appropriate for this presentation, but I have the whole document that's typed up and written about why they came here and their intentions. And they used to give, they started, before they even started the school, they gave piano lessons, music lessons and such in the convent to students to get them, acclimated to working with the nuns. But Catherine Smith said that she took lessons still in the 70s, piano lessons in that convent with some of those nuns.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if they actually did live in that house. The information that I've been given is a little murky, but that they lived in the convent over on Georgia, but they taught at the school. And then some have said that potentially a couple of the nuns also lived in the house on Country Club. All I know is really what Catherine Lassiter, who was the son of Dr. Smith, said as far as them purchasing the house in the early 70s. So I don't know exactly what year or what happened to the house between when the school closed or moved over to Link Road and when they bought it.
What year did they move over to Link Road?
It moved to Link Road in 59.
And I'm looking right now at the deed when the Smiths bought it from the Catholic Church, and that was 1976. So even after the school left, the church then still owned it for another 17 years.
And
Oh, wow. And it was vacant.
Now, it's just to note, Will's father was born in that house. So Will's father, John Carr Spencer Jr., was born in that house. We have a picture of him as a baby being held by Mrs. Huntley on the back porch. So
I'm curious to see what will happen with that house.
Yeah.
She's 97. You're going to buy it?
Well, I sent her a note about 6 months ago and told her not to forget me.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
And I courted Dr. Smith through the late 90s for about 5 years. And he'd be out there raking leaves, and I'd stop and pull up and say, I know you've got to be tired of raking the leaves. And I tell Mrs. Smith, I know you've got to be tired of raking the leaves. But I love the house. I always have.
Me too. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It would be my last great hurrah of remodel. Or
It's a beautiful house.
And I think, did she really pay $50,000 for it?
Yeah.
No, the
Catholic Church did.
The church did. Okay.
I have it in writing when my grandfather's son, Junior, B.F. Huntley Jr. said, sell it, sell it, sell it. Because they've been trying to sell it for years, like 5 or 6 years.
Well, yeah. And apparently whoever sold it to the Smiths, did the Catholic Church sell it to the Smiths?
Yeah.
Shows the deed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the realtor wouldn't show her the house, and she said my mom drove by and said, well, what about that house? I want to live in that house. It's big. I got a lot of kids. And he's like, oh no, you don't want that house. It used to be it's a mess inside.
Oh, mercy.
So anyway.
Neat story.
It's got good bones. It's Charles Barton King.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. I didn't know any of that. So I'm making
now you know more.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's right.
Marker applicants, we as staff and on behalf, hold on. I need to admit Gerald, he got kicked out. Let me just wait till he gets in. Gerald, I hope you can hear me. Okay, Marker applicants, thank you all for bringing these stories and for spending time documenting these places that are and people that are important to the history of Winston-Salem. As Michelle said earlier, this is staff's favorite thing every year to hear these stories. This is why we do what we do. Places are repositories of memory, and it's just incredibly meaningful. So thank you for spending the time to submit these applications. Committee members, thank you for giving your time to be here tonight, to review the applications, think about them thoughtfully, and score them. So committee members, what I'm going to ask that you all do is please complete your spreadsheets with the scores tonight or tomorrow and email those to me. CJ has brought it to my attention. There may be an issue with one of the formulas. So don't worry about that. I will double check all the formulas tomorrow. As long as the scores that you enter in each of the individual categories is correct, we'll make sure that all gets rolled up properly like it needs to. So once back to you applicants now. Once I get all the scores in from all of our marker committee members, tomorrow I will tabulate and total those. And then the 2 highest scoring applications will be the ones that are taken to the Historic Resources Commission for a recommendation for a marker award at their December 7th meeting. I will communicate with all of you later this week what the results are tomorrow if I have them, and if not tomorrow, then Thursday certainly, to let you know the ones that are going to be going for a recommendation. But then, as we've heard tonight, there's been quite a bit of discussion about the marker text. So just to reiterate, that will be a collaborative process between the applicant, the marker committee, and staff, so that we develop a text that everybody can be proud of and happy with, that we really feel reflects the spirit of the history that we want to see reflected in the markers. So that will happen early in 2023. And once text is agreed on by all parties, we'll order the markers. And once the markers arrive in town, we'll do the unveiling ceremonies, which will likely not be until the fall of 2023. So
well, I will just say, on behalf, as chair of the marker committee, this has been an outstanding meeting, as they always are. It's one of our favorite things, and I wish everybody would win or would receive markers, and I hate that not everybody can, but keep in line.
That's right. If you especially for those of you who are newer applicants, it is not uncommon for people to apply several years in a row before they are awarded a marker. So please don't take it to heart. I think everybody, the comments have shown that all of these stories we all think are marker worthy. So again, thank you for sharing the history with us. Committee members or applicants, do you all have any questions, or are there any issues I have not covered?
Heather,
yes.
This is my first time using the scoring rubric.
Mm-hmm.
I might have some questions. Can we talk tomorrow?
Yes, just give.
Okay.
I will be in the office tomorrow, so if you have questions as you're working through it, just give me a call.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Heather, for all your work.
I love doing it. It's my favorite part of my job.
I know. It's gotta be. So.
Yeah, absolutely, without question.
But that's hard work, and I appreciate it.
All right. Well, in light of the fact that we've all been on this Zoom almost 2 hours now or longer, for those of you who were early birds, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you again all for your time, and we'll be in touch later this week.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great evening. Stay dry.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.